Hello, I'm Dan Robertson. I'm the Global MD of FAIRER Consulting. FAIRER Consulting is a global management company. We're part of Hayes, and we advise our global clients on diversity training and consultancy services. So how did I end up where I am as a D&I consultant? To be honest, I'm not sure I chose the work. I think it chose me. And what do I mean by that? Well, actually, I actually went to university to study journalism. And I got into the journalism program, and I was young and very naive. And my view was I wanted to be a journalist and expose all the wrongs in the world and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember doing the first semester at university, and we start to learn about news values and things like that. And it became apparent to me very, very quickly that journalism wasn't for me. You'd have to create a headline to get some noise. And I understood that the headline was not necessarily the truth. The truth is a bit boring. It's not interesting. The truth doesn't sell newspapers, and it doesn't sell, audiences and stuff like that. So I got disillusioned by journalism within about 6 weeks. And it was interesting that in my university, in my art college that I went to, was a program around critical theory, which I'd never heard of, but somebody was talking to me about it. And I looked at the curriculum, and it was a bit philosophical. So it's the construction of race, the construction of gender. You were studying queer theory. This is way back in the day before it was even popular. And I thought, that looks amazing. So I switched. I went to the course leader and said, can I switch? He actually said to me, Dan, I'm sorry, we're full. And I said, look, I really need to get onto your program. And he said, well, go and find an assignment from your A-levels and I'll read it. And if it's good enough, I'll let you on. And I was like, oh, I'm stuffed here. So I scurried off, and I found the best thing that I could discover from my A-levels. And I presented this thing, and I didn't hear from him for about 2 weeks. And I thought, that's it. I'm dead in the water. And I just got an email later, about 2 weeks later, just saying you're in. And that fundamentally changed my whole level of thinking, because what critical theory gives you is an understanding that how you view the world and how people view you is socially constructed. It's historically constructed. So the notion of gender and race and any parts of your identity, without going too abstract for us at the moment, is constructed in these ideas of what are called power discourses. And those power discourses are determinants of how people see you, how you see others, what your opportunities and stuff like that. So this was like game changing. It literally changed my field of vision. And I also understood that how I was treated as a kid and how my family are treated in terms of our social background and stuff like that, that people are just quick to judge. And I decided that that's not what I wanted to do. And I wanted to create a space where we just don't do that, actually, and we treat people for who they are and the rest of it. My proudest professional moments they've probably been the tiny moments of, you're running a workshop with, a bunch of leaders, and, some of them can be quite hostile. I remember an experience where I went into, I won't name the organization, I flew into Geneva, and I was running a session for a bunch of very senior leaders, and they were quite hostile, actually. They'd been told to come on this thing. And I'd been talking for like probably only about 5 minutes, and they were like, oh, Dan, you're here to brainwash us and this, that, and the other. And it's funny that through a conversation that you can start to see, they might not necessarily agree with you, but a moment of, what, there might be something in what you're saying. Maybe the world is not fair, and actually, maybe we are privileged, and maybe I do need to focus on my behaviors and stuff like that. So I think some of the greatest wins for me are those moments of conversation where somebody says, I'm going to go and think, Dan, about what you've just, the conversation we've just had, and see what I can do about it. Yeah. I've been working in this field now for actually over 20 years. And, if I reflect back, I think a big question is, what's changed? Have we seen some positive movement? And I think the short answer to that is absolutely yes. If you think about a policy level, when I first started in this field, we had actually quite limited equality law. We had anti-discrimination law based on race, and we had anti-discrimination law based on gender. There was no anti-discrimination law based on age, based on sexual orientation. You could be fired for being a certain age. You could be fired for being, lesbian, gay, bisexual. Social attitudes were far from where they are today. And I think actually, if I look back over the last 20 years, I think two big things have happened in a really positive way. One is everyone is just much more clued up. And I think that's just a great message that, we are aware of bias. We're aware of racism. We're aware of sexism. We're aware of homophobia. But more than awareness, I think that even though clearly we still have, a long way to go, I think there's a general acceptance that, calling people out because of their race or their sexual orientation or whatever it is just not acceptable. So I think social attitudes have moved on a mile, since I was a kid or since I worked in this field. And then I also think at a policy level, I think corporates now, this is so mainstream to corporate life. And I know there's lots of debates around, performativity and the rest of it. But, this was really on the margins, 20 years ago. A few of us were working with corporates then and working with business in the community and the rest of it to get this on the corporate agenda. But it was more playing around the edges. And I think now it is much more ingrained in the corporate psyche. And I think what that means is, everyone's just much more clued up about it. And we are conscious of, let's make more efforts to reduce things like sexism, homophobia, whatever. So I think if I scan back, my reflections are we are so progressive in terms of where we were, but of course we can't be complacent and we've still got lots more to do as well.